Welcome back, everyone. So today we're throwing back a little bit to the 70s and we're making a Hawaiian meatloaf. I actually mentioned that to Bill today and said that's what we're having for dinner tonight, and he'd never heard of Hawaiian meatloaf, so maybe you haven't either. It was a big staple in the 50s, 60s, early 70s cookbooks. Pineapple, chili sauce, ground beef, seasonings makes a savory, sweet, at the same time meatloaf. So that is what we're doing today. So in order to make your Hawaiian meatloaf, you actually have, you could do this about 1.5 pounds. I have about 2 pounds actually of hamburger here, ground beef. It's an 80-20 is where this at. You don't want the leaner, you want the fatter side of this because you don't want it to dry out in your oven. So you need that fat. So with this, this is really simple. You just put your ingredients together, dump them in a bowl, form your loaf, bake it. You're pretty much good and golden. So you have the meat. Now in this, you're gonna put in about 1/4 cup of minced onion. So I use shallot because again, I like the shallot flavor. It's a more mild flavor behind it. And actually, to get a mince on an onion, shallots are pretty easy to do that with. You just peel your shallot, cut it into slices, group that together on your cutting board, and then just start running your knife through it. It's gonna break down pretty quickly into just minced pieces without a lot of work. So yay, we love that kind of thing. You're also gonna put in, because this is just over 2 pounds, I'm putting in 2 teaspoons, actually, pardon me, 1 full teaspoon, not 2, 1 full teaspoon of black pepper, ground black pepper, because you wanna get some seasoning in this. You are doing just over 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You are putting in sweet chili is what I use, sweet chili sauce. You can use spicy chili sauce if you want. This has a slight spice to it, but it's more on the sweet side because the pineapple I think will work with that. So I have a little bit over a third and a tablespoon of sweet chili sauce. The reason I do the extra tablespoon is because you have things left over, either in your measuring cup or wherever it may be. So I always throw a little dash extra in there for the pot. Kind of like when you're making a tea, you do some tea leaves for the pot. It's the same idea because some gets left behind. So you're also gonna add to this, I have here 3/4 of a cup because it's just over 2 pounds of ground beef, 3/4 of a cup of dried breadcrumbs. You could do seasoned dried breadcrumbs if you want, but be careful on your seasoning that you're not mixing up your ethnicities and cultures of things, because you don't want an Italian breadcrumb in this because the chili sauce and the pineapple, it won't work well together of this. So this is just plain breadcrumb is where this is at. Then, because it does have a slight Asian feel to it, I have something that's called an Asian spice. I get this at my local grocery store. You can find it, it's just called Asian spice. It's a mixture of dried garlic and some sesame seed, and it's got a little bit of dried onion in it as well. It has a couple of other different spices as well, seasonings to it, so it's just called Asian spice. Then you're gonna add, because again, it's 2 pounds. If you were doing 1.5 pounds, you would probably just do 1 egg. But because I'm doing just over 2 pounds, I'm gonna do 2 eggs to bind this together. You remember before I said don't crack it on the side of the bowl to avoid your shells getting in there. And because you don't wanna handle this too often, the more you handle your meat for meatloaf, the tougher it's going to be. So what I do with this to get the egg incorporated is I do a quick beat outside of the bowl just to get my egg broken down. So you can do that, and then I pour it in. And then I mentioned 2 eggs, so we're doing that. 2 large eggs. Again, just pre-beat it outside your bowl because you don't want to overhandle this. Get that in there. Okay. Yay. So the best way to do this is get in there. Get your hands into it. Get dirty, as they say, because you're gonna mix it all together, and really, again, to not overdo it and to be able to tell if everything's incorporated well, it's best to do it with your hands. So hopefully you're not squeamish on that with the raw meat and the eggs. You're gonna wash your hands afterward. We have to have safety first. And this is why you want a large bowl, so you can work this through pretty quickly. Okay. So all of that is mixed in. What I did before is when you buy your ground beef at the grocery store, it's usually into a nice little loaf or a chunk and everything. So when I put it in the bowl, I broke it up a little bit first so my seasonings could start to get in there pretty easily, and I didn't have to worry too much about spending time breaking up the actual meat with the seasoning. So you're going to now take this out of your bowl. It's not full enough. As you see, it probably didn't mix all the way through. You can see it. So this is actually good while you dump it out. So you just want to continue to do this and make sure it gets mixed in. Fun with meat. Then once you feel everything is mixed in well enough, you're going to form it into a loaf. It's called meatloaf. Be meat square, you can put it into a square or round, but most likely you're gonna do a loaf, which is a rectangle, okay? And it's usually a lot higher in the middle than it is on the ends. So I have lightly greased with cooking spray, a shallow roasting pan. You wanna make sure it has enough size to it to catch any juices. And we're gonna place this in the pan. I sprayed it. I like these little foil ones when I'm doing stuff like this because easy cleanup, you gotta love that, okay? And again, I love using my little flexible cutting boards because I can just slide this in and don't have to worry too much about it losing its shape and losing things on it. Make sure that's center. And I'm gonna bake this in a preheated 350-degree oven for 55 minutes, 50 to 55 minutes, until the center is at 160 degrees. Then you're gonna take it out and you're gonna put the glaze on it, which is a pineapple sweet chili glaze, which I'll show you in the next step here that we're making. And then you're gonna bake it again for 15 more minutes until the center is at 165. So 350-degree oven for about 50 to 55 minutes until the center is about 160 degrees. So we will see you in a little bit. I'm gonna wash up and we'll show you how to do the glaze. All right, everyone, our meatloaf has been baking in the oven at the 350 degrees, and it's been about 45 minutes. You want to have it where your meat thermometer is at 160, the internal temperature and everything. So this is at 160, and now we're gonna put the glaze on. So what I did is I took an 8-ounce can of crushed pineapple, drained it really well, so I got about 2/3 of a cup of juice out of that, and I mixed it just real quick here with it was a 1/2 cup of the sweet chili sauce, the same sauce that's actually in the meatloaf. And you're essentially going to brush this on to make your glaze. Ooh, this is gonna be good. I'm excited by this. The first time I went to Hawaii, I went on one of those timeshare things where they give you $199 for the week, and you stay at this really nice place, and you have to listen to the 2-hour timeshare. So Bill and I went. It was in Kauai, and I won't say which hotel it was because we didn't buy the timeshare, and there's a reason that we didn't do that. But we went in March for my birthday because we like to travel for my birthday. And when we got to the rental car place at the airport, I rented a car for the week, and she said, hey, for another, I think it was like $50, it was really cheap. For the entire week, I can get a convertible. We're in Hawaii. Convertible sounded really good. It was a beautiful day. It was like in the mid-70s, and everything sunny, beautiful. So I said yes. Now, if you know Kauai, which I do now, then I didn't, you find out it's called the Rainy Island. And March is the rainy season. We were there, it turned out, on the Rainy Island during the rainiest rainy season they'd had in well over a decade. First day was gorgeous. The rest of the week poured down rain. I should have been suspicious when I got the convertible for $50 for the week for an additional $50. Live and learn. Still went out in the rain, had a good time, enjoyed it, but that was my first experience in Hawaii. So give you a Hawaii story because we're having Hawaiian meatloaf. All right, so you brush this on your glaze and you put it back into your oven for about another 15 to 20 minutes till the internal temperature gets up to 165. So we'll see it at the end here and be with you soon. All right, so our meat cooked for another 15 to 20 minutes. It was about 18 or so when I got to 165 degrees. And then I took it out of the oven and I let it rest for 5 minutes because it's been working pretty hard, so it needed a 5-minute rest. You want to do that so the juices all go back into the meatloaf. So I took it out of the pan, I put it on here as well, and now we see if this actually worked. So your meatloaf should hold together, it shouldn't fall apart, and we'll see if that actually is true on this. Oh yeah, perfect. Oh, the steam, yes. Love the steam. So, if your meatloaf falls apart, it means you didn't have enough binding agents. It was too wet when it went in there. So this is actually really good. See if I can get this up out of here. As you notice, I always have trouble with these kind of things, but you know what? It's not take 2 or take 3. So there we go, our meatloaf. And we've done some traditional sides while all this was cooking and baking and doing all of its things and resting. I actually made some more smashed potatoes, but not garlic, because garlic will not go with this. And I also made some haricots verts, so green beans, where I actually blanched and shocked them, and then I cooked them in a pan with a little bit of compound butter, just to kind of bring a little flavor back into that. We're gonna have dessert tonight. We're actually having pound cake. Did not make the pound cake, I'll do that some other day. But I actually have crushed pineapple that I cut up and some whipped cream. And what I did with the drippings from the crushed pineapple was 2/3 of a cup that was left over of juice. Instead of just throwing that away, why? It has great flavor. I actually put in 2/3 a cup of water and 2/3 a cup of sugar, so equal parts. And I boiled that, took it to half and made a simple syrup out of it and brushed the pound cake with the simple syrup. We have the fresh pineapple on the side. We have whipped cream. We have this. It smells so good. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you've got the smell of the pineapple and the chili. So we're about to try this. Okay. So those who think of meatloaf think of it as dry and stale and hockey pucky. This is not one of those. It is moist, it is tender. You have the chili sauce, just the sweetness of that. A little bit of kick, very tiny bit, so people who are spice averse shouldn't have a problem with it. The pineapple richness of that, and a little bit of sour and sweet together. You're gonna have your potatoes, your green beans. So this is a great family meal, bringing back from the 70s, as I said. We brought back our 70s meal with pound cake as well, because that was the 70s things too. We'll have another day where we'll show you how to make pound cake, because I prefer my own versus the store-bought kind. So this was Meals with Michael. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe so you get noticed when the next Meals with Michael video is up, and tell your friends. Bon appetit.